Don't miss new episodes of So What Happened To, Saturday mornings on RatedEm.
The 2000s were a very experimental time for media and marketing. The turn of the millennium brought a wave of futuristic optimism, but in some cases, companies took the futuristic part and ran an extra mile with it. No company did this harder than PlayStation. Both the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 had some really obscure marketing, but it was so unique and so different from anything that had been done before when it came to marketing technology that these advertisements sort of became the pillars of what is now the fabled Y2K aesthetic. They were that impactful. Between commercials and magazine advertisements, both of these consoles have had some of the most interesting and peculiar marketing that the gaming world has ever seen. Today, we're taking a look at both the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3's weird marketing and seeing just how weird it can get. Let's start with the PlayStation 2, and I want to start with the commercials for this console. Now, there were a ton of commercials promoting the various games on the console that at times could be just as weird as the ones promoting the console itself. But I want to focus on the latter topic. I just want to focus on the ones that promote the PS2 on its own. The most notable ones are these the third place commercials. Some of these commercials aren't too bad. Like there's this one of a dog dreaming, and then it just ends with the tagline, the third place. It's not too bad. But there were a few commercials that contributed towards the ethereal and almost alien meaning behind the tagline and the console. The PS2 was marketed similarly to the original Xbox in that it was supposed to be this otherworldly technology that was more powerful than anything you've seen before. There's two commercials that really push this agenda. The first one I'll discuss is the infamous David Lynch commercial. Okay, well, there's actually two David Lynch commercials. There's this one of a truck hitting a deer, and then the truck is the one that gets totaled while the deer is completely unharmed. This one isn't that bad. It definitely defies the audience's expectations to create a memorable advertisement, and I think that the switch up of expectations sort of plays into the idea that the PS2 is different from anything you've ever seen, and you should drop all expectations and preconceived notions that you have about the world around you before jumping into using such a powerful and different piece of technology. But in terms of weirdness, this one's not that bad as the more infamous David Lynch commercial for the PS2. This one has this man walking through like this weird labyrinth while all these ominous sounds play in the background. There's these nonsensical visuals of a woman floating in space, and then the guy's head flies off his body and he spits out a human arm, and then at the end of the commercial he sees this?
Welcome to the third place.
Like, what the fuck? This is what I'm talking about. The PlayStation 2, and as we'll see with the PS3, had these weird advertisements that sort of illustrated the console as a portal to some other reality that we as humans just can't comprehend. And honestly, I love it. The confidence behind these ads like this that make you question, is the PS2 really that special? It's a completely lost art. Again, it illustrates the PS2 as a portal to a reality that we have never seen. Now, console advertisements feel more just like suggestions. Maybe buy an Xbox Series X, or just play games on your PC, or just stream it to your phone, do whatever, we really don't give a fuck. As opposed to advertisements like this, and especially the ones we'll see on the PS3, where it's like, you can only play games on this specific console to get the full experience of getting your mind blown. There is no alternative. Welcome to the third place, motherfucker. You ain't ready for the PS2, but it sure as hell is ready for you. I also wanted to bring up the PS9 commercial. This one isn't as creepy, but it definitely paints PlayStation as a brand that only creates the most powerful gaming consoles, and it doesn't settle for less. This guy like opens up a ball labeled the PS9, and honestly I can't tell if it gives him superpowers or if it puts him in some sort of like virtual trance, but regardless of which way you interpret it, the main argument is that a PlayStation is a crazy powerful immersive console, regardless if you use the PS1, the PS2, or in the future the PS9. Regardless of where we are in time, one thing is for certain. PlayStation is where the power is. The larger aspect I wanted to discuss regarding the PS2's marketing is the various magazine advertisements created for the console. These were equally as outlandish and at times a little edgy, and I really like that about them. Again, it gives a sense of like confidence in the product. Was the PS2 the most technologically powerful console at the time? I don't know, maybe, but the advertisements certainly made it seem like it was, and it assured you that you'd get your money's worth if you bought a PlayStation 2. These advertisements all had a focus focus on sort of defying reality. The visuals would take familiar concepts, mostly related to humans for some reason, and then put a spin on them to, again, show that the PS2 was different from anything we have previously known. These uncanny and disturbing visuals pushed that agenda heavily. A few of them also just had like a general futuristic sci-fi theme, which I think was pushing more towards the idea that the console was a powerful machine that was like the first steps to the quote-unquote future that we've all been waiting for. The rest of these ads I think were just edgy for the sake of being edgy. Like there's this one with the condoms shaped like the PlayStation controller buttons, or this one with the icons in the eye. I sound like a broken record at this point, but as I've said so many times already, these advertisements all push for the agenda that the PlayStation 2 was this otherworldly machine that was nothing like humanity had ever seen, and it's absolutely in lost art.
Need a new form of entertainment in your life? Join the thousands of others who have considered subscribing. Side effects may include joy, laughter, and newfound knowledge about video games. Talk to your doctor about if subscribing is right for you.
You're watching RatedEm. Don't touch that remote.
Now when I say it's a lost art, I mean in terms of today, because this energy was carried over into the early PS3 advertisements. The unfortunate part is that while these advertisements did have a similar notion of promoting the PlayStation 3 as a futuristic device that nobody had ever seen the likes of in the way that the PS2 was advertised, these commercials really struggled to sit well with consumers. Also, I'm going to be focusing on the commercials because there weren't a whole lot of like weird PS3 magazine advertisements. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find who directed the Play Beyond PS3 commercials. A lot of people just see how weird they are and they misattribute it to David Lynch once again, but I think this is false. David Lynch only did the Deer one and the Labyrinth one for the PS2. But these commercials all had really obscure and abstract visuals, and then they would end with the tagline Play Beyond with the E being replaced with a 3, because, you know, PlayStation 3. The first one that a lot of people think of when the early PS3 commercials come up in conversation is the Baby Doll one. Now, I'm writing this script, and I just tried to type out like a description of it, and I actually sounded like a crazy person, so I'm just gonna let the commercial roll, and you can see it for yourself. I honestly think that these commercials do an even more efficient job at illustrating that the PS3 is a piece of like alien super technology. But I can also see how these commercials are just a little too abstract for the modern consumer. Sure, the people who want to believe that the PlayStation is an all-powerful machine might enjoy these commercials, but these commercials are not meant for the crowd who just wants to play Little Big Planet and watch Blu-ray movies. The Play Beyond commercials are just a little too niche, and again, a little too abstract. There's this one of the PS3 solving a Rubik's Cube, and then it does it so efficiently that it like explodes and paints the walls of the room with the various colors from the Rubik's Cube. And I think this one is meant to describe how powerful the processor is, so again, I think these abstract quote-unquote alien technology commercials are meant for people who are more interested in the hardware that goes into these consoles. These Play Beyond commercials actually ended up sitting extremely poorly with consumers, and a few years after the initial release of the PS3, Sony released these commercials starring the supposed vice president of PlayStation, Kevin Butler. Now, this is not the real vice president, this was just a character that Sony had created, but he was very personable and he made the PlayStation brand a lot more approachable to a more casual audience. And this is important because, yeah, a lot of people who bought PS3s just used them as a Blu-ray player, or they were younger than Sony's intended audience, or they were new to gaming entirely. This campaign was much more effective than the Play Beyond commercials, and saved the PS3 from becoming a commercial failure, along with like price cuts to the console over time, because it was like $700 at the time, like when it first came out or something like that. So there you have it, a comprehensive history of weird PlayStation advertisements. I've got a video coming up about generalized gaming magazine advertisements, so if you really like this video, I highly suggest subscribing to catch that other similar video that's coming out.